The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious. The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hello, this is Scottish Independence podcast number 41, and this time I spoke again to Robin McAlpine, who's been on before. Robin's the director of the Reid Foundation and also the editor of the Scottish Left Review. We had a conversation that took in a number of things, and you'll get to the revelation at the end that Robin thinks we're better together. But in case you just spat your drink, not in that sense, but you'll find out why. So we'll go to the conversation. Hope you enjoy it. I'll have a word with you at the end. Hi Robin, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah. This isn't the first time you've been on, and so I suppose we should try and mix it up a little bit. So, as this isn't a neutral podcast, this time we'll try it in a more neutral way. I'll do my first question in the style of the entirely neutral Kirsty Work from BBC. So, can you explain yourself, you fetid separatist scum?
No, I'm really sorry. I didn't realise that I'd got it all so badly wrong. I've learned the error of my ways. I will apologise fully. No, not at all, Ms. Wark. This is the point at which you must have noticed Scottish politics changed underneath you. You must have noticed, just while you were sitting there with your establishment pals talking about the future of the Scottish political establishment. The Scottish political establishment lost control of the politics of Scotland. While you were looking, a mass movement of working people, campaigners, activists and others created an entirely new politics in Scotland and got on with pushing it through yourself without your approval. You must be pissed off.
Was that when I was on holiday with Jack McConnell?
It might just have been when you were down in London. It doesn't really matter. It happened out where you don't see it. It happened out in doorsteps. It happened out in town halls. It happened out in people's homes. It happened outside there. Ordinary people have started to get involved in some of this campaign. And as they're doing so, and as people are starting to ask themselves questions, they're starting to understand that it is possible to have a different set of politics in Scotland and that we don't need anybody's permission to have it.
So that's our little homage to Kirsty over. Thank you for that, Robin.
No more hostile interviews.
No. So one of those different forms of politics you've been talking about is the Commonweal, which has been getting quite a lot of publicity on that mainstream media that we were just sort of parodying there. But how's the whole campaign going? Who's been taking it on, and have you been getting a lot of support in the Parliament as well?
I mean, the support's just been unbelievable. I had fully expected that we would get strong support from the kind of campaign sector in Scotland, the emerging radical independence movement, and a lot of the on-the-ground Yes Scotland activists who kind of came into the Yes campaign from being political activists of other kinds. So I was confident that we could probably start to get that message out to them. I'm an optimistic guy. I was reasonably confident we could get quite a bit of support in the SNP. I thought we would do well with the Greens, but I didn't expect the volume of pickup we've had. I mean, we had really good briefing sessions with the SNP MSPs and a really good response and reaction at conference, and there's an enormous amount of interest in looking at what we're doing. The Greens are very positive. Of course, we've got the full radical independence stuff, but I mean, before anyone boos and hisses, I had a very good session with the Scottish Labour MSPs. They were genuinely engaged, genuinely interested in the stuff that we're talking about, and they expressed an interest in looking at this. So, even Scottish Labour's taken some interest. But the thing which I think has been great this week, and I'm still a bit surprised. I'm still going to go back and read it, make sure I didn't misread it. Is in the Guardian in 1 week we've had John Harris, Simon Jenkins, and then Martin Kettle, all talking about the Scottish independence campaign, about what it really is. About a social campaign, about a political campaign for transformation. And if you look at what was being written in the page of The Guardian, 3 or 4 months ago, that's a massive turnaround. So when I'm flipping open the newspaper, it was yesterday, and Martin Kettle at the end of his article, without inverted commas and without any explanation, simply said, we need a commonweal for Britain. That's a moment when you know that an idea has certainly reached a critical mass that's having a real influence.
You didn't quite get Simon Tisdall. He wrote a rather silly thing about independence recently, but that's amazing that you're getting most of them.
I don't imagine we'll get everybody, but the fact that people in England are starting to understand what's going on, and in particular the fact that they can use the word commonweal as if it's a political philosophy that's been around for 20 years is great progress.
Yeah. So what's the next stage of the rollout?
Well, we've got a party coming up. Everyone's invited. There's if you want to come, do book early. There's only about 850 places. But we've booked the Archies for Sunday the 8th of December because the fabulous Glasgow design agency Tangent contacted us and asked us if they would like them to do a visual ID for us. So we said, yeah, that'd be brilliant. They've come back with an absolutely beautiful design. And what we've now got is it's kind of spiraled out into a bigger sort of it's almost like a little arts project. So at the launch, we got 4 leading authors. We got Liz Lochhead, Louise Welsh, James Roberts and Alan Bissett have all done little inspirational slogans for us, which are going on T-shirts. So we've got these 4 limited edition T-shirts and stickers and posters. And we're launching with some music and some jokes. Bruce Morton's doing some comedy, Mogwai are DJ, and they've donated us a song. So we've got a Mogwai anthem now. And the idea of all of this is that we want to start to create a politics which is popular. Not populist, not setting half the population against the other in a kind of nasty reductionist way, but a genuinely popular politics which people can talk about, which people can engage in, which they could, if they were feeling inclined, spray in a wall in under 20 seconds. This kind of idea of giving a brand, a visibility to this idea and to enable people to talk about it. So that's a week and Sunday coming, and it's also going to be launching a website. So we're using now as a tagline, again, as part of this campaign to try and get people able to talk about politics. We wanted to find a way to describe the difference between, Westminster politics and the politics that we could have. And so we're using the dichotomy, me first politics and all of us first politics. So we managed to get a hold of, and this is a great surprise to me, we managed to get hold of all the domain names, all of us first. So in all of the world, nobody thought to buy the domain names all of us first .anything, which I think is telling about global capitalism, to be quite honest. You'd have thought someone would have thought that was worthwhile. So we own all those domain names now. We're getting a website programmed, and the idea is that anybody, you do not have to be a think tank academic, you don't have to be a political expert, anybody can come and kind of look at what Commonweal is and what it means, and they can decide if this is the kind of politics that they want. So that's the next thing we're doing, along with putting out all the policy papers, which are not slowing down one little bit.
Yeah, so what's the next one up?
Well, it depends what day this podcast is up, but let's imagine you're listening to this after, I think, Monday. We've got a paper coming out on industrial democracy. So this is a model for industrial democracy for Scotland, with a right to employee representatives and boards, a right to coordinating committees which would help to run the shop floor, and a 50-50 committee between management and workers that would enshrine a set of policies which would enable a positive relationship between trade unions and employers, which would create a widespread collective bargaining, hopefully where possible, at an industry scale, so we can collectively bargain right across an industry. But all of this being something which is developed to move forward consensually, that we're stressing, as always with Commonweal, that we're trying to bring people's interests together. And the paper goes quite a long way to try to show that the interests of business people and the interests of employees, of workers, are not far apart. If you get good industrial democracy, you get better innovation, you get better productivity, you get lower levels of industrial dispute. So I was really quite pleased to see the stuff in the white paper about trade unions and about a national convention on industrial democracy. This paper was already finished before the white paper came out, but this is sort of our first salvo to say, okay, let's have that commission, let's have a national debate about a decent industrial democracy, and this is our opening gambit about what we think it should look like. So that'll be out on the website early next week.
Ah, great. Can I just move that in a kind of green direction? Because obviously at the moment with the Cameron government, we're living under the greenest government ever. That's green government for fracking and whatnot, and new nuclear power stations. But would there be a green element in this new industrial democracy? Because people talk about the reindustrialisation of Scotland, but it seems to me that almost every country in the world is missing the great opportunity to take the lead in green technologies that everyone is going to have to do sooner or later. Does this industrial democracy paper include some ideas along those lines?
Well, the industrial democracy really is about industrial relations, so it's all about trade unions. No, that one's coming in a paper which will be out early next year, which is, well, I mean, the model that you're talking about there will be spread across a number of our bits of policy work. We've got a strategy coming out, Principles of an Industrial Policy for Scotland. And one of the things it's going to say is that there are important industry sectors that we would want to develop in Scotland, which it is not really credible to believe that the free market will just spontaneously create all by itself. Now, some of the renewable technologies come into that category, so it is slightly more expensive to do some of this stuff than to do things in another way, and that means that the market runs a mile from it. But in fact, what you're really looking for is not only the cost of doing something, but the long-term benefit of doing it to your capacity. So let me give you an example. We've also got another paper. I mean, we have an enormous number of papers coming out. We have another short paper from a guy who's been doing work on energy storage. Now, what he's pointing out is that if we had a more effective technology for storing energy, that you would increase the efficiency of our existing renewable energy by 2 to 3 times. What it means is that all the electricity that's getting dumped at the moment because it's being produced at the wrong times, it's not at peak hours, that could all start to be stored. Now, this storage technology, there's a couple of them, but one of the storage technologies is still comparatively experimental, and it works, but it's not been large scale tested to the same degree yet. So that means that if we put that technology in, it's a little bit more expensive. However, if we get it right, if we can put this technology in and make it work, that makes us the nation which has pulled this off and which has done it. So sometimes, I'll give you another example, is if we use our energy paper which came out a couple of months ago, in which we explain how we can fairly straightforwardly take the national grid and energy generation back into collective ownership at very little cost and entirely under European Union laws. And if we do that, what we can say is it might prove, 10, 15% more expensive if we buy all of the materials, all of the turbines, all of the rigs, everything that we need. If we source them all in Scotland, it might be 10% more expensive or something than if we were just importing them from China. But that 10% of extra cost brings an enormous national benefit. We create jobs, we create an industry. Again, we start to create technology areas where we can keep improving the quality of what we're doing. So absolutely, one of the key areas is that new technologies, new green technologies, they're going to be an increasingly important part of global commerce. So Westminster doesn't seem interested. It doesn't put money into research and development in these areas anything like enough, and it doesn't even support the industry sectors properly, which enable them to develop. So part of the idea of Commonweal is that you start to work mutually. I'll give you one last example, and this is a wee bit early stage development. We're talking to a few people about it, but let's take another range of problems which we haven't solved. We've got a massive land ownership problem in the north of Scotland. We've got large amounts of youth unemployment. We have all sorts of fuel poverty issues, and we have a green agenda problem. Well, why don't we take back some of the land in the north of Scotland and use it for industrial scale willow-coppicing, say, for example? So what we could do is you could have sort of kibbutz things where young people could go work 4 months, 6 months of the year up north, managing large scale willow-coppicing to make biofuels. Now that in itself wouldn't work unless we can create a market, which is where you maybe say to 5, 6 local authorities, right, convert your local authority into district heating biomass, first of all for council buildings, and that creates a market which ensures that the industry that you've got up the north can work and that the kids can get these jobs, and that you can get a proper supply chain in which biofuels are being used. And once you make it viable through collective action, as soon as it becomes viable, you start to get to the point where we can look, particularly in our cities, and possibly particularly in Glasgow, which is so ripe for it, to put in a system of district heating, which is cheaper and more efficient and can all be run off of biofuels. So that's 3 quick examples of how, if we choose to use a Commonweal economic development strategy, if we say, look, what we're doing here is getting government to work with local authorities, communities, the private sector, if they can all work together and pursue collective strategies and goals, and we want to use the opportunity of new technologies, particularly in the renewables area, we can create entire industry sectors that are not just going to emerge by themselves, and which frankly have very little chance of emerging from Westminster at all.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Westminster's against this for many reasons, because there's vested interests, or sometimes they don't understand the proposals particularly well. But one of the ways that they choose to attack proposals like this in the green energy is, or something we've seen the way the white paper was attacked recently as well, is, this is all stuff from the ether, it's a wish list, it's all impossible. And I think one of the good things in your papers the ones that I've read, even though these ones aren't out yet, but is that you say, no, here's how we can do it. And this stuff isn't just coming out of the ether.